Today's daf we're going to be learning is Ketubot Daf Lamed. Today's daf is sponsored by Zev Segel, Char Sara Nisan, and Nomi Noi, in loving memory of their mother, Zelta Zahava Segel. Okay, we're going to be starting our daf at the bottom of Kaftet Amud Bet. What we saw yesterday was our Mishnah with Elu Narot Sheyesh Lem Knas. These are the people who get Knas, and we saw different categories, including ones who, if he rapes her and she is forbidden to him, a rayot that's karet, then he still pays the knas, to which we said that we have, our Mishnah disagrees with the following Tanaim, Shimon HaTimni and Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, who both think that it has to be a woman in order to be responsible to pay the knas, to be liable, has to be someone who, according to one, Kiddushin or Tofsim, if he were to marry her, it would be a valid marriage because of Veloti Elisha. And according to the second, it's a woman who we can stay married to. What's the difference between the two? So we suggested a few suggestions, right? We said Mamzeret and Natina, because Kiddushin are valid, but they're not allowed to stay married, to which we said that works fine. But what about Rabbi Akiva, who thinks that even by Mamzer and Natin, there is no Kiddushin Tovsim, right? Betrothal wouldn't be relevant, and you can't stay married. So they both are saying the same thing, to which we suggested, well, according to Rabbi Simai, there is one case of Chai Ve'Lavim, not Mamzerim and Natinim, but Almana LeKohen Gadol, where even Rabbi Akiva would think the Kiddushin are Tofsim. What about Rabbi Yeshvav, who thinks that Rabbi Akiva didn't hold that way? And he said, anyone she'ein lo bi'abi Yisrael avlad mamzer, any forbidden relationship, the vlad is a mamzer. So what would be the difference between them? Because then everybody is in the category of ein Kiddushin Tofsim, and right, you can't stay married. And then there would be no difference between Rabbi Shimon HaTimni and Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, to which we answered, Chai ve'aseh, right? It's things like a Mitzri and an Edomi, where you only learn from a mitzvah aseh in the Torah that, or a positive wording, you learn the negative. You can only marry third generation, which means you can't marry first and second. In those cases, maybe Rabbi Akiva would hold Kiddushin or Tofsim, even though in other cases not, and even though you really can't stay married to them. To which case, we said, well, it really depends on how you understand Rabbi Yeshua. He really wasn't very specific in what he said. He said anyone that there's no permitted relationship, right? No bia is not allowed. Any sexual intercourse is not allowed. Then avlav mamzer. So he wasn't really so specific. So hani chala Rabbi Yeshevav ilafu kemim ta'ama de Rabbi Simai kat. If he was trying to disagree with Rabbi Simai, then we understand. Rabbi Simai said, everyone except Almana LeKohen Gadol. And he said, no, even Almana LeKohen Gadol, I think not, but yes, Mitzri and Edomi. Then again, Kiddushin would be valid, even though you have to divorce her. And then that would be the difference in halacha. Shimon ben Menasya would say, there's no, right, you wouldn't pay knas in that case. And Rabbi Shimon HaTimni, who says, Isha shuesh b'havaya, as long as there's havaya, Kiddushin would be tofsim, you would pay knas, in which case you would pay the knas according to him. But if he wasn't reacting to Rabbi Simai, he really meant literally. Rabbi Akiva said any kind of case where you can't have biyah, which would include then the Mitzri and the Adomi, then, right, afilu chai ve'aseh, he would say, right? So again, Tama dinafshe, kol she'ein lo biyah b'Yisrael avlad mamzer, any relationship that can't happen, the vlad is a mamzer, even chai ve'aseh, even like the Mitzri and Adomi convert. Well, my benayu, so what's the difference between them? Well, there is one difference. Ika benayu be'ula leKohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol has to marry a woman who's a betula, who's never been with a man before. She's a virgin. What if he marries someone who is not a virgin? Now, it says in the Torah, Isha b'vtula yikach. He has to marry a virgin. It never says he can't marry a non-virgin. Well, this seems to be the same as the Mitzri and Edomi. It's a positively worded statement, which is teaching something negative. But Maishna, why would this be a difference between the two, even if Mitzri and Edomi is not? They all agree in Kiddushin Tofsim by Mitzri and Edomi. It's a mitzvah aseh that's not the same for everybody, meaning it's only relevant for a Kohen Gadol. So that puts it in a unique place that maybe we would say Kiddushin or Tofsim there, but not, right? But you can't stay married to them. And in that, Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, that's where Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya and Rabbi Shimon HaTimni would disagree. Shimon HaTimni would say there's knas because there is knas, right? Because there is Kiddushin or Tofsim. Shimon ben Menasya would say no. If a Kohen Gadol raped a woman who was already not a virgin, right? That would be ein Kiddushin Tofsim and it would be ein ra'oi l'kaima. it would be a case, again, this is all according to Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Yeshavab, and according to the way that he said Tamad Denafshe, he would distinguish in this one case. Rav Shimon ben Asi would say, oh, look, this, they can't stay married, but it wasn't forbidden, right? If he had done Kiddushin, it would have been a valid Kiddushin. Okay? That would be the difference. And again, Rav Shimon ben Asi would say, no Knas, because he's not allowed to stay married to her. Rabbi Shimon HaTimni would say, yes, Knas, because Kiddushin would have been valid. Amar Rav Chisda, Hakol modim b'ba'al hanida shemishalem Knas. Now we're going to say that all these guys, though, all three, Shimon HaTimni, Shimon ben Asi, and Rabbi Akiva, and our Tan of our Mishnah would all agree that b'ba'al hanida mishalem Knas. If a man rapes a woman who's in nida, okay, again, an unmarried virgin woman she's menstruating, or when she's in the status of nida, then you pay the knas. So, because if you say it's all about our kiddushin tofsim, well, yes, you can betroth a woman when she's in nida. There's no issue with that, right? It's a bit of an issue with marrying a woman when she's in nida, chupat nida. Anyway, some people actually forbid it. We do permit it, but find ways to get around the issues. But definitely betrothal, there's havaya. And you also could stay married to her just because she's in nida, right? She'll get out of nida soon. You can remain married to her. Okay, that's all that. Now they want to say this whole thing. Our Mishnah again says chayve kritut, there's knas. That whole thing is premised on, we talked about this yesterday, that if there's mito beitin, then we don't pay the knas because it's the law of kimle b'derabamine. When you have mita beitin, the beitin is supposed to administer two punishments, the mavet and money. We do the more severe one, which is the death penalty, and you don't have to pay the money. But this is all afuke midrabi nechunya ben hakaneh, and that's what the Mishnayot are based on. Our Mishnah says there's knas in a karet case, just not in mito beitin, which we're going to see in the further Mishnah. But Rabbi Nechunya ben hakaneh has a different approach. D'Tanya Rabbi Nechunya ben hakaneh hayoseh Yom Kippurim k'Shabbat l'tashlumim. He views Yom Kippurim like Shabbat when it comes to tashlumim. What does this mean? If I burn my friend's field on Shabbat. So for burning, I'm liable for skila, for stoning. That's a mita beitin. For the fact that I burnt his field and ruined his stuff, I have to pay money. So since I get the punishment of the court, I'm exempt from the money punishment. Well, Af Yom Kippurim, which actually is not punishable by man, only by God, karet. Well, since you get karet, you're exempt from payment. So that goes against our Mishnah. That's a different approach of Rabbi Nechunya ben hakaneh. You're exempt. To which the Gemara says, "My Tami de Rabbi Nechunya ben hakaneh." We're going to have two answers. One is going to take us a little while, and then we'll get to the second. Amar Abai, Ne'emar ason b'yidei Adam v'ne'emar ason b'yidei Shamayim. We learned the whole law of Kimle b'derabamine, as we explained yesterday, from the word ason. It said in the pasuk, if two men are fighting and they kill a baby, right, the fetus, not a baby. There's a pregnant woman who gets in the middle. She loses her baby, but there's no tragedy, meaning there's no accident or however you define ason. She is still alive, no humans, right? Again, fetus is human, but not fully human. No fetus, the fetus dies, but not, which is a monetary payment. Okay, you pay the value of that by money. If only it's the fetus and not the mother, then you pay money. But implied from there is, if there was an ason, if she was dead, you wouldn't pay the money. So comes the Gemara and says, Abai says, well, it says ason there, and that's bidei Adam, because the person killed her. But also ne'emar ason bidei Shamayim. But in a different place, when Yaakov is supposed to send Binyamin, remember Yosef demands that Binyamin come, right? Where's your other brother? Bring him down. Yaakov says, I'm worried, b'karau ason. Right? I don't want a tragedy to befall him, and I'll lose both of my sons, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want to send him. Now, what is Yaakov worried about? The Gemara Abai assumes, what kind of worry? Ason bidei Shamayim. He's worried about a tragedy bidei Shamayim. Okay? Now, they say, if it's a tragedy bidei Shamayim, right? So now what do you see? Ma'ason ha'mor bidei Adam patur min tashlumim. Therefore, when it says v'lo ya'ason, and we learn the whole law of kimle b'derabamine from the word ason, which in that verse means bidei Adam, by man, it should also mean when it's bidei Shamayim. Okay, so af ason ha'mor bidei Shamayim patur min tashlumim. So that ason includes both. even though the simple reading there was it was Bidei Adam, since in a different place, Ason is Bidei Shamayim, this one also must be referring to that. So that's Abaye's proof. Now we're going to have a whole tangent about what we just said. And then we'll get back to Rava, who has a different proof for where Rabbi Chudi ben Akana learns this halacha. How do you know that Yaakov, when he was warning his sons about worrying about losing Binyamin, he was worried about cold and heat? Now, Sinim and Pachim, it's not exactly clear what it means. Some people say cold and heat. Some people say cold and obstacles or something along the way, which are in the hands of God. Okay, we'll talk about this in a minute. Are they really in the hands of God? Right now, they assume that Sinim and Pachim are in the hands of God, like weather related. Let's just assume it means heat and cold, right? That's weather. Weather, we always say, is in the hands of God. We can't control the weather. Dilmal Arya V'Ganvid, to be there, maybe he was worried that Binyamin was going to get killed by lions or thieves, which are man-made things. Now, lions aren't exactly man-made, and we'll get back to this, but maybe that's his concern. To which they said, Atu Yaakov, aha Ishal, aha lo Ishal. No, what you think Yaakov was only saying, I'm worried about certain types of danger? No. Period. Yaakov was worried about whether he would die in the hands of God or he would die in the hands of man. Either which one he was worried about, which means Ason includes both. Okay. That resolved the question. Now the Gemara says, wait, your whole question about Adabarava is that Sinim and Pachim are Bidei Shamayim, and how do you know that that's what he was worried about? To which the Gemara said, you think cold and heat or obstacles or things like that are Bidei Shamayim? V'hatanya. It says in a Braita, Kol Bidei Shamayim chutz mitzinim v'pachim. Everything is in the hands of God other than those two things. Now, what could this mean? If it's weather, well, first of all, nowadays, right, global warming, we're responsible for the fact that the weather has extreme weather patterns. That's number one. I don't think that's what they were thinking of back then. But that the weather is also a matter of how you handle the weather. Are you dressed properly? Are you taking the proper precautions? Are you going on the path when there's terrible weather and you know there's this terrible storm? Why are you going on your way? Or you go out in the heat. Someone dies from heat stroke, right? Well, you should have been careful. Right? Bring water. Don't dehydrate. So that could be, right? Or pachim, if there are obstacles along the way, pay attention to them. That's your fault. That's negligence. Everything else is in the hands of God other than human negligence. To which they say, how do we know this? Shenemar, Sinim u'Pachim, it's a pasuk from Mishlei. Sinim u'Pachim are two things, b'derech ikesh, in a twisted path. Shomer nafsho yerchak mehem. Anyone who's wise will stay away from that. So these are things clearly we can stay away from. V'tu, and furthermore, the other thing you said, Arya v'ganve b'dei adam, you think lions and thieves are in the hand of man? V'hama Rav Yosef, v'chein tani Rabbi Chia, miyom shacharav beit hamikdash. From the day the temple was destroyed, even though we no longer have the Sanhedrin, arba mitot lo batlu, we still have the 4 mitot beitim. Is it strange? We don't administer capital punishment anymore. So the Rosh Hashanah says, lo batlu, ha batlulu. What are you talking about? Of course they were canceled. There's no more punishments of the court. Ela, turning out Amubet, din arba mitot lo batlu. The laws of the 4, the judgment of the 4 mitot is still there, meaning what? If someone's supposed to get stoned, did something wrong that makes them obligated, God makes sure that those things happen, which means that, we're going to say that somebody gets killed by thieves or by lions, it's because God made it happen. So again, let's go through the 4. So there's stoning. Stoning was they would throw someone from a building and then they would put stones on top of him. So if you fell off a roof, it's like God punished you through that mitzvah that you were supposed to get. Or for some reason, a wild animal eating you is the same kind of thing. That would be the lions. If you're supposed to get killed by burning, either you die from a fire, you get bitten by a snake who puts in his poison and it burns your insides. You're supposed to get killed by hereg, which is by the sword. Onim sar l'machut, either you get the authorities, right, the Gentile authorities sentence you to death where they would kill you by sword. O listim ba'im alav, or robbers would come along the way and stab you. And one who's obligated by strangulation, either he drowns, where he kind of chokes on the water, or he dies with this disease, which kind of where your throat constricts and you end up choking. So seems to be that, number one, sinim and pachim are bidei adam, and aryeh v'ganave are bidei shamayim. By the way, this connects with what we talked about yesterday, the kutim. They were people who were attacked by lions, which they viewed as a sign from God. So now, what did they answer? It must be the reverse. It must be what he meant to say was aryeh v'ganave bidei shamayim, sinim pachim bidei adam. We flip it, and then it all works out fine. That was all to a question on Abaye, who said about this ason that Yaakov was worried about the ason happening bidei shamayim. Okay, and that ason there means bidei shamayim. Therefore, ason in our pasuk where we learn kimle is bidei shamayim, and that's how we got to kimle. Also applies by karet. Rav Amar Tamad Rabbi Nechunya ben Akaneh mehach. He learns it from a different place. The psukim in Sefer Dvarim, Sefer Vayikra, chapter 20, psukim 4-5. It talks about if someone does offers up their son to the molech, which is a way that they would worship this avodah zarah by this idol by offering up their firstborn sons. If the people ignore that he did this, and they don't kill him, okay, they skip some of the pasuk, but it says lebilti hamit oto, and they don't kill him, the court doesn't do the death penalty. I will go to face this person, and I will make sure he gets karet. Pay attention. Amra Torah. So what do they darshan from this pasuk? This clearly doesn't seem to be the simple reading of the pasuk, but in the world of drashan, many things are allowed. The Torah said, "Karet sheli k'mitah shelachem." My karet is like your death, meaning, right? I'm comparing. You should have killed him, instead I'm killing him. Well, that means my karet is like yours, and that really this verse, according to the Drasha, is talking about the law of kimle. Just like your mitah in the court is exempt from tashlumim, if someone's liable, death penalty by karet through me, then they're also patur min tashlumim. And that's the second source for Rabbi Nechunya ben Akaneh. To which the Gemara asks, Ma'ika ben Rava la Abaye. What would be the difference, the halacha? So notice that Rava talked about karet specifically, and Abaye just talked about death in the hands of God. So we can find a case where there's death in the hands of God, but it's not called karet. That's ikabenayu zar shachal truma. A person who's not a Kohen who eats truma gets death by the hands of God. If he ate the truma that belonged to somebody else, he'd get death in the hands of God, and wouldn't have to pay the damages that he stole someone's stuff because of the law of kimle. And that would be only true according to Abaye. Okay, let's read it. La Abaye patur, because Abaye said any death in the hands of God, kimle. Ule Rava chayam, because Rava said only if it's karet, and this isn't karet. Right? What exactly the difference is between death in the hands of God and karet is not clear. Nobody really knows exactly what karet is. Some people say karet could be that your children get cut off. Your children die before you. Some people say it's that you die before your time. Whereas mitah bidei shamayim is often understood to die before age 60, which is the kind of the sense that people should live till 60, and people who die before that, again, nowadays, lifespan is very different. These were just beliefs. Nobody really knows what it is because it's all in the hands of God, obviously. To which the Gemara asks, wait a minute. And now we're going to get into, continuing also in tomorrow's daf, about when does kimle apply and when does kimle not apply, and what are all sorts of criteria about what has to be in place in order for kimle to work. So, Labai patur, you be patur for zar shachal truma. It's not a case of kimle. Why? Rabbi Nechunya ben Akaneh agrees, though, even though karet, you are liable, right? And kimle does apply, but not if gonev chelbo shel chavero, you stole forbidden fats. There's fats you're not allowed to eat of the animal. Someone had them, you stole them from him, va'achalo, and then you ate them. So you be chayav karet for eating chelev, and you be chayav money for stealing. Well, kimle doesn't apply here, even according to Rabbi Nechunya ben Akaneh. Why? Right? Shu chayav. Why? Shekfar nitchayev b'gneva kodem sheba lidei sor chelev. First you stole, then you ate the chelev. You stole it before you ate it. First you have to steal it, and when you obligate in stealing, when you pick it up, that's called a kinyan. You made it. You acquired it by stealing. Right? You stole it. When you lift it, it becomes yours. When you eat it, that's a later stage. Kimle is only when both things happen at the exact same time. So if a zar shachal truma, first he stole it, then he ate it. So the Gemara has to find a case, right? So let's read this inside first. So why is he patur here? Because the moment of he lifted it, he acquired it. But he was only liable the death penalty later when he ate it. So hachanami, likewise in our case, when he stole the truma from someone kanye. But he's not liable until he ate it. So the Gemara tries to find a case where it'll both happen at the same time, but they're going to have a little difficulty. His friend shoved it into his mouth, which means he didn't lift it and steal it himself. Somebody put it in his mouth. Now, either he was unwilling, like he wasn't interested in stealing, someone just put it in his mouth and he stole it. And then when is he liable? By swallowing it. Okay, and then it's because he benefited from something of someone else. He's not really a robber, but he still is responsible to return the money. But not if it all happened at the same time and he incurred the death penalty. Some people say that he wanted to do it. It's just his friend did it for him, so he was stealing it, and the friend but there was no hagbaha because the friend stuck it in his mouth. Okay, and that he was willing and that it was then liable for stealing. So difference of opinion among the commentators. But then the Gemara rejects this and says, sof, kevan de la'ase kanye. He's still, when he chews it, that's already acquiring it. But he's not responsible until, the death penalty until he swallows. So still it happens at different times. So they give they say, they shoved it all the way down his throat, not in his mouth. They shoved it down his throat, where at the moment he swallowed was this, that's when everything kicked in. To which they say, well, it sort of depends. If he can actually spit it out of, it's not shoved in a way that he can't get it out of his throat, then he should return it, Theoretically, he then is obligated at the moment he doesn't pick it out of his throat, okay? And then we understand what they're really saying is, if we're going to see the second part, maybe we'll go one more line and then we'll go back. If he could pick it up, spit it out, well, then he's responsible. He's kind of stolen because he didn't stop it from happening. But if he can't take it out of his mouth, well, then somebody shoves something down your throat. You're not liable. You didn't do anything wrong. They shoved it down your throat. There's no way to take it out. That's called ones rachmana patri. The Torah permits you, it doesn't obligate you when you had no choice in the matter. I'm not responsible for something if you shove it down my throat and I can get it out and I swallow it. So there's not even a chiyuv here. To which the Gemara says, what we're talking about here is you could spit it out, but it already got a little gross in your mouth. And at this point, nobody will want to get it back anymore. So you're actually not obligated for stealing because there's nothing to return. You're obligated is for the fact that you, in the end, benefit when this goes down your throat and into your body. So you benefit from that benefit that your body is getting from the food. When does that happen? At the same time that you swallowed it, both the obligation that you ate truma and the obligation that you have to now return money because you swallowed someone else's stuff and benefited from it. So now we found a case. But now we're going to have two a little bit easier answers. Well, this one's really easy only because we just did the first answer because it's really the same idea. They put liquids down his throat. In that case, no one's going to want liquids after they went in your mouth. I don't know why they would want solids either, but it seems like solids you could somewhat distinguish. Maybe you could rinse it off. But liquids, you obviously can't rinse off. And then again, if they put it down your throat, again, everything's going to happen at the same time because you can't take it out. So you're not obligated for stealing, but when you benefit from it, which is the same moment that you benefit in terms of the truma, that you ate truma, everything will happen at the same time. Last answer of Ashi Amar, Bizar shachal truma mishalo v'kara shirayin shel chavero. It's a very different kind of answer, saying that as you were eating the truma, it was your own truma you were eating. So it's not a matter of theft. It's you were eating your own truma, you were obligated death penalty by the hands of God. And at the same time, you were ripping up a beautiful silk shirt of your friends. Okay? Now, that means that you're doing damages, at the exact same moment, even though it's not the exact same action, Before we thought Kimle was kind of, you did one action where you're obligated to two things, like burning someone's field on Shabbat, where you did two things in one. And not everybody agrees with Rav Ashi that this is a case of Kimle. A lot of people take issue because this is a case, comes up in Sanhedrin, it's mita lezeh v'tashlumin lezeh. You didn't do the same thing wrong to the same person even, One was truma, which affected your you and God. And one was Shira. By the way, what is Truma of your own that you're a Zar? It means you inherited Truma from your grandfather, let's say he was a Kohen, your mother's father's a Kohen. You inherited Truma of his. You weren't allowed to eat it, but you ate it. So you're obligated death penalty. And at the same time, you rip something of someone else's. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, there's opinions, if they're two separate things and relating to two different people, you're not actually obligated. You're right. I'm sorry. It's not a din of Kimle. You would be obligated. The Kimle doesn't kick in. But Rabbi Ashi clearly thinks that Kimle would kick in this case. And therefore, he brings this as a possible case where you could have Kimle in eating Truma. Okay, because again, it's not stealing Truma, which resolved the problem we had before. If it's stealing, it doesn't all happen at the same time. These things do happen at the same time, but they're two different actions that happen. You do at the same time, you wouldn't be obligated both. Again, according to Rabbanit Michelle Farber and according to Abaye, who says Mitabidei Shamayim would be Kimle. Whereas Rava thinks Mitabidei Shamayim wouldn't be Kimle, only Kare, and he wouldn't think there's Kimle in this case for a different reason. With that, we finish today's daf. Tomorrow we'll go more in depth into this case about the chaylev, eating the chaylev and stealing it and then eating it, and how there's no law of kimle. In that case, we'll start with that tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.